morning. My name is Dana Altman. I have my contact information in the chat box. I'm the client relations manager for community outreach and the account manager for our corporate training department at JVS, Jewish Vocational Service. We're located in East Orange and in Montclair. JVS was founded in 1939. Our motto at JVS has always been helping people help themselves, which means that we help people get jobs and get back on their feet. Our Jobseekers programs are fully funded by Jewish Federation of Metro West, and we thank them so much for their support. We're also funded by the Helen Kozlowski Foundation in memory of Helen Kozlowski, and we thank her and her family as well. Welcome, everyone. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. At the end of the presentation, you can save the chat box if you want to, so you don't have to scribble notes from the chat. You could save the chat by hovering over the three dots in the chat box and click on the option to save. Please make sure that you're muted. We're delighted to have Greg Russo with us today to speak about networking into your next job. Greg is a human resource executive and business leader with over 25 years of experience building and nurturing organizations. Greg's hired thousands of employees as head of HR at Jobseekers and other organizations. He's now founder and CEO of Kavod HR Consulting, providing consultation in all areas of HR. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat after the word question, and Greg will answer them during the presentation. Greg, it's all yours.
Okay, so today's presentation is going to be into your next job, successful job search and moving things forward. I'm going to cover a bunch of material because I think it's important that when you're networking, it's also important that you have your marketing material prepared properly because those things will be looked at. I'm going to go through several slides that essentially is presenting to you guys an overall view of a successful job search. And as I said, feel free to send any questions into the chat. So I imagine a lot of you are getting frustrated. Searching for a job can be very frustrating. And I'm saying here a successful job strategy goes beyond throwing darts and hoping that some stick. And I think we've all been through situations where we apply to jobs that we see posted and we say, that's a great fit for me. And we wait and we wait. And either we get no response or we get rejected and we can't figure out why. And in my experience, that's very disempowering and it tends to lead to frustration. So I want to present an alternative methodology that empowers the job seeker, gives the job seeker more control, and we'll work through the steps. I think it's important, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I want to establish that I do have some credibility here. These are some of the organizations that I've worked for. And literally I have been involved in hiring, thousands of people, primarily as you see in life sciences, but, these are corporate positions as well. So it spans things like finance, IT, as well as life sciences. I'm currently the managing director of my own consultancy, Kavod Consulting. And at Kavod Consulting, we provide HR services to emerging organizations, primarily in the pharmaceutical industry. So as I said, real quickly, I'm trying to move beyond the job postings. These are some of the companies that I've worked for. So what I want to talk about, and I guess based on the demographic I'm familiar with from JVS, that this is not geared towards recent college graduates. I'm going to focus more on things that would help an experienced individual, who is transitioning to a new job and looking for something new they find more challenging and more fulfilling, or currently out of work and looking to rejoin the job market. So I'm not going to focus a lot on gaining clarity, but as I said earlier, it's important that your marketing material be appropriate and be well established prior to beginning your networking, because people are going to look for those things, and you're much better off getting them organized early so you have them at your disposal. And then I'm going to spend most of the time talking about a methodology primarily around using LinkedIn to successfully network and create advocates for you in organizations. and then convert those advocates into job leads. And I'm briefly going to touch upon interviewing because that would ideally be the next step. So if you think of a job search, you can talk about, these kind of 4 buckets. Gaining clarity, what jobs appeal to you, what jobs are good fits for you. And that looks at what kind of compensation is important to you, your own skills and background, what type of organizations or industries are good fits for you. It also looks at things like cost of living in various localities, in our current world, remote jobs, hybrid jobs. But getting some clarity for you personally, what is your bullseye? And people, are hesitant to kind of take an outside-in perspective, which is I'm going to advocate for. And by that, I mean, there's a wealth of information available to you by looking at job descriptions and by researching organizations. And if you're not sure what a job is, you can look at the job description online and just get that familiarity to understand what that job is all about. As you kind of clarify your target, it's a matter of creating your marketing material that matches that target. And people spend money, for resume reviews and resume writing, and there's definitely some value in that. But think of it, without having the target you're shooting for, it's a generic process. So your accomplishments might be more clear, your resume might be more readable, but the real question is, how does that align with your target job? So my suggestion is start with a target job, then build your marketing material. And anybody who might resent the word marketing and says, I'm not a product, I'm sorry, but in this situation, you are a product. It doesn't mean that you're to be dehumanizing, but you're selling yourself. And it's an important skill to learn and be comfortable with. And you can think about people that appeal to you or products that appeal to you. What are those qualities and how can you replicate them in your own work? And then once you market, part of marketing is going to be networking, finding individuals who can help you. And more often than not, as you gain momentum into that, job leads will start to become apparent to you that you may have overlooked. Excuse me. I'm going to talk briefly about interviewing, mostly about a methodology I recommend that people do that I really believe helps them gain confidence, helps them become more successful interviewers. And very briefly, pretty much not at all, I'm not going to get into talking about negotiating the offer. But you should recognize that an offer consists of more than just a base salary. It's a work-life balance that might be important to you. It's the quality of the benefits. It's vacation time. It's long-term incentives in some cases or commissions. And you need to think that 360 perspective as you're negotiating a job offer. So I just want to talk briefly about this idea of gaining clarity. Just give me 1 second because I'm trying to follow my slides as well. And part of them are blocked off here, as you can see. At least for me, they are. So you need to develop a list of skills that you enjoy doing and what you're good at. And you can do that when it's introspective. Think about your past jobs and don't think like you're writing a resume. I think a lot of times people get so hung up on getting the language right that it stymies their thinking. When you're relaxed at some point, just make a list of the things that you've done that you're good at, what type of teams you work well with, if you've been involved in making presentations or conducting meetings, which ones you really walked away feeling fulfilled about, times when you may have led other people, times when that you've made compelling arguments or influenced others. The way I recommend doing that, and this goes back to kind of old interview training when I used to train people in the corporate world, and some of you may be familiar with this methodology. And it's kind of simple, but it's very effective. As you kind of think of these ideas, think of what the situation was, the problem you were asked to solve. So I spoke to a young woman last week, who's looking to leave teaching to get into a job in educational technology. And she was telling me, how the kids weren't using their cameras on during Zoom and how that was frustrating to her and frustrating to others. So she took the initiative to develop a confidential survey using Google Documents that she sent out to the kids, to ask them about their opinions, ask them why they weren't using it. And she kind of found that some kids were uncomfortable because of their social economic situations. They didn't want people to see, their background and theirs and their homes and what room they were in. And she found a way to work with them to still give them the option of using the camera or not, but she made it more comfortable. And the result was she was able to increase the number of people, who had their camera on. It's thinking about these situations you've done at work, the problem you were trying to solve, what task or action you took to solve it, and the results. And by doing this, a couple of things I hope are going to happen for you. One, you start gaining more confidence. You're going to catalog your successes, which gives you an opportunity to reflect and feel good about what you've done. You're also going to begin the foundation for being successful in interviews. The biggest problem I've seen with people in interviews is they're rambling on. You need to be succinct and concise, give an example, tell the story, step back, and allow the interviewer then to show interest by asking questions. And you can't do that unless you practice. If you have these lists of these stars, and once you create them, you categorize them. When an interviewer asks you a challenging question about a time when you influenced a decision, or a time when something you didn't work out well, you've got this whole library of accomplishments you can draw upon. And you can practice being succinct, giving an answer, taking a breath, and waiting. And this might sound trivial, but as an interviewer, I figure it's my ball. You're playing on my court with my ball. I have a list of information I need to get from you to assess if you're the right candidate for that job. If you're going to take our half hour or 20 minutes and dominate it by telling me a rambling story, I'm going to try to redirect you once. I might try a second time. If that's not successful, I'm losing interest. I'm spending the rest of the time doing a courtesy interview. Let the interviewer control the interview. In terms of gaining clarity, and this is something I focus on more for new college graduates, but something to think about. If you're at a point in your life and you're saying, what do I really want to do? Here's 3 books I can recommend, that help with that, that talk about what type of careers are out there. They have some self-assessments in there, that help you kind of think more clearly about what kind of work you want to do and what's the best fit for you. Now I'm going to talk about resumes. And I said right up front here, your resumes are like your favorite food. Everybody has different preferences, talking about the Wonder Trucks, but I think we all generally agree what a well-prepared meal looks like. And I'm going to talk about the well-prepared meal as opposed to saying this is how your resume has to look. It's got to be simple. It's got to be easy to read. I don't want a complicated document. I personally don't like what's called functional resumes that talk about my skills, and then I've got to piece together the person's job history. My preference is for chronological resumes with clear, simple, bulleted points. If you do that stars exercise, you might find that you can pull some of those stars out and put them into a resume format to build your resume. Use short declarative bullets. The first word or two should be what the action was that you took. You created something, you launched something, you sold something, you presented something, you did something. Because I want to know what you did. If you can quantify the results of what you did, it's more powerful. People are drawn to numbers. To have some numbers sprinkled in your resume regarding your accomplishments is very important. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. Sometimes the numbers are kind of made up. Because really, do you really know how many people's opinions you've changed? Can you always quantify what the result is? But if you say 32% or something, it sounds convincing. Say 50%, it sounds less convincing. 12%, 18%, using those numbers, sprinkling that into your resume as your result, it's going to gain traction for you, and it's going to be something that is, people's eyes are drawn to. As you create your resume, I want you to be honest. I also want you to think broadly. You've been out of the workforce for a while. If you've been a stay-at-home parent and now returning to work, but meanwhile you volunteered, you did something that is important in your community, you should include that as well. Because what you're doing is you're showing your transferable skills from your community service life, into your job. And these are just some examples. I worked with a woman earlier in the summer, which I thought was fascinating. She's an Olympic athlete. She actually medaled in Tokyo as a professional cyclist. And she said to me, I'm kind of done now. The Olympics are over. I've been a professional cyclist. Now I need to get back into the real world. She had a degree from a very prestigious college in computer science. But the past 4 years, she was an Olympic cyclist. Her resume that she showed me was on the left. It's boring. It's boilerplate. It's plain. Now, you guys are all here Olympic cyclists who medaled in Tokyo, and you get excited. And I got excited. So what I had to do with her was break down what she had done, turn those into transferable skills, and we ended up with the word you're seeing on the left. Action word, mentored new riders. It's an exciting thing to hear about. This person, now you say, has skills to lead other people. She motivated the team. You see a number there of how many times the team won national champion medals. She educated young cyclists, developed our young people. 15 countries. I mean, it's an important skill in today's multicultural world to have cultural fluency. This woman was in 15 countries making presentations. She marketed her team and her sponsors' products. She raised money, for a nonprofit by selling her bicycles, auctioning them off after the races. And you can see the difference here between where she started and where she ended up. And this to me is an example of what the resume should look like with the bulleted points. In terms of a resume, in terms of how it should be formatted, this is a format I recommend. It's chronological, most current job first, bullet points of accomplishments under each job. It's a simple, easy to read format. Unless you're a CEO candidate or a PhD, with lots of publications, I would think your resume should be no more than 2 pages. Should you have an objective statement or not? That depends on what kind of work you're looking to do. But if you have an objective statement that's too narrow, it's going to pigeonhole you into something. Now, here's another trick. You guys have computers and word processing now. Your resume is not a static document. If you're reading a job description that has a whole bunch of keywords and things on it that you can do, update your resume for that job. Don't leave your resume as a static document to say, this is it, it's done. It should be dynamic. It should focus, again, on the target you're looking for. Okay, but now I'm going to talk about your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to jump into networking.
Oh, Greg,
Sure.
I'm sorry, one question. Someone was asking about that they were told not to include any work experience older than 10 years. What's your take on that?
I think 10 years might be too shallow, especially if a person looks like me and obviously been in the workforce more than 10 years. On my resume, I collapsed the first 10 years or so of my career into just simple lines indicating the company and the title, without the dates. Because look, it seems, I'm not trying to hide my age or my accomplishments. I mean, I couldn't have gotten to positions I had unless I had done these earlier positions, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time or bullet points or real estate on those jobs. If you're, post 50, take the last, and you can't get it into 2 pages of everything. take the first 2 jobs. I worked at Macy's early in my career, and I worked at a defense contractor. That was 4 years of my life. I don't include that really on my resume anymore, other than 2 sentences at the bottom, previous experience. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So LinkedIn, you must have a LinkedIn profile. Full stop. If you're looking for a job, if you're in the business world, you must have a LinkedIn profile. There's lots of information on the internet about how to create a LinkedIn profile. Some of the key ideas, and this comes right from LinkedIn, have a profile photo. Don't take a picture where you're like this with somebody and the other person's cut off and you see your arm. I'm not saying you have to invest in a professional photographer, but have a friend whose hobby is photography, or find a picture you really like where you look clean, you look neat, there's a neutral background, and it's a picture. This is a great picture of Kate. I mean, it's clear, it's neutral background. Make sure you have a good high quality picture. List your positions along with your job descriptions. You can pull a lot of that from the resume once you build it. Include skills in your profile. Have a nice brief summary about yourself that talks, again, that objective statement, but more personal, who you are, what you've done. Have your industry filled out, your zip code, add your school. And if you haven't got 50 connections, get 50 connections. Everybody on this call should be able to reach out to each other on LinkedIn and add their connections. And update it occasionally. Your LinkedIn profile is your business card these days. If you reach out to somebody, they're going to go there and see, who is this person? Recruiters are constantly using LinkedIn, doing keyword searches through the filters to find candidates. The more active you are on LinkedIn, the more complete your profile is, the more connections you have, the more likely you are to pop up on a recruiter's database if you reached out to cold for a job. So you have to have a LinkedIn profile, and you should go research it and make sure it's complete. Okay. Now I'm going to really talk about what I think is the meat of my presentation. How do I access this hidden job market? How does networking really work? I'm going to use LinkedIn as a tool and go through this in some detail about how to use LinkedIn successfully to find that hidden job market. This is the methodology. You start with your profile, you click on your network, and then your connections. And then you have an opportunity to search your connections with filters. Now, these connections of yours are presumably people that you know. If you click on all filters, you'll have choices of things that you could look at. How you're connected to that person. How did I do it here? Connections, first connections are people you're directly involved with. Second connections would be somebody that knows somebody you're involved with. Third, obviously, and so on and so forth. You can search the connections, and you can do this multiple times. I'd say your first time you want to do this, leave it first connections. Who do you really know? And you're going to find, like I find, I have 3,000 plus connections on LinkedIn. I wish I was that popular. Some people, the people I recruited in previous jobs, the people who've reached out to me, you're going to find some people you really know, some people you don't know. You're also going to find something really fascinating. This is so important to think about. It's called loose ties theory. You would think the people that you know well would be the ones who are most helpful to you. They're not going to be. It's the people that you know less well who are going to be helpful. And that's a good thing, because the people you know less well have a different network than you do. And they're going to bring you fresh connections you wouldn't have. If you're location specific, for me, I prefer, again, this first round, I do the search around greater New York, and New Jersey. Because again, you want to see, who do I have things in common with? If you have a past company or a company you're focused on, say you're only interested in working for Pfizer, you can put Pfizer in there. I think having your school, again, that first round is important because it gives you an in. I'm an alumni of the same school as yours. The more you have in common with somebody, the more likely they are to respond to you. And I'm going to show you how to reach out to people using that commonality. But you should go in here, and again, this is also not static. You play with the filters, you massage them. Now, the challenge with LinkedIn is once you do this search, you can't save it. At least I haven't figured out how to save it yet. So it becomes an iterative exercise. Yeah, and you can take these names, put them on a list and write notes, but you want to do this because this is what's going to get you into the next level. Okay. Once you've kind of found some people that are appealing to you, in this example, maybe you're looking for a job with Accenture. They said the results can be overwhelming. Look through the shots, look through the names, find people that you feel comfortable with in this first round. You can message these people. If you pay a small fee, I think it's less than $30 a month, you become a premium member. And I don't work for LinkedIn, but that gives you more in-mails. So you can reach out to people. If a person's a first connection, you can reach out to them for free. But a second or third connection might require what it's called an in-mail credit. So you find somebody, for example, David Hole, because you're interested in a job in consulting. Click on the message. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is send David a message that should be a compelling headline in the subject line, but not I'm looking for a job, can you help me? We haven't talked in a while. I see you doing some interesting things at Accenture. I'd love to catch up. Find something that is kind of neutral, kind of interesting, not a big ask. I'd love to connect for a few minutes. Okay. Your message is casual and conversational. Dave, I really want to get a job at Accenture. Can you give me a call? He's not going to call you back. Make sure there's a way to respond. You can get back to me via LinkedIn, or here's my email address. And what you're asking David to do is talk about himself. I'd really love to learn about your career at Accenture. I really want to learn more about this paper you published recently, or about Accenture's efforts in why. And here's an example of something I just put together as a starting point. Hi, David. I came across your background while researching Accenture on LinkedIn. This was done, with that woman in mind who was a school teacher who wanted ed tech. She could say, as you might see from my profile, I'm a tenured middle school teacher, science teacher, exploring careers in educational technology. I'd welcome a chance to connect with you on a brief call. She's not asking for the moon and the stars. It's a brief call. She establishes her credibility. She gives the person a reason to want to talk to her. In your educational technology, a middle school science teacher is a target audience for you too. The person might say, this is a contact I might be able to use to help sell my ed technology. Asking for a brief call. Let me know if you're available to speak with me by phone. I appreciate your time and open schedule at your convenience. They're doing you a favor. It's their convenience. It's a small ask. As you craft these messages, think of what you have in common with the person. Think of giving them a hint of what's in it for them. Establish your credibility and be succinct. And I'm telling you right now, you'll probably get about a 30% success rate. And that's good. Don't get frustrated. People aren't getting back to you. I haven't had any response. It's also a game of numbers. You're going to keep filtering through LinkedIn, and you're going to do what I learned from this woman, A/B studies. You're going to try this message for a while. You're going to copy and paste it into Word or something that you have. Then you're going to massage it and play with it, and you're going to send out a different version to the next 6 people. And you're going to keep refining your message based on the kind of responses that you're getting, so that you create the best message that's going to get people to get back to you. Now, in the macro perspective, what we're doing is we're taking control of our job search. We're not waiting for the job to be posted. We're reaching out to people in a proactive, polite way, professional way, say, hey, talk to me. Now, a lot of companies, as you all know, have referral bonuses. They can't find good people. If I refer you and I get $2,000 or $1,000 or $500, it's my benefit as well. So I could take the time to talk to you. And you might find that conversation goes well. You have that conversation then leads to kind of the next slide. When you're having those conversations, think of them as informational interviews. Guys, it's a conversation. I mean, don't take the robot tone. I'm calling this person I don't know. I'm really scared or nervous. Build yourself up. You're an adult talking to an adult. People don't want to talk to people who are nervous. First thing, this is interesting. I found this, supported by science studies. It's still a good time for you. It's interesting. The study I read says that has a significantly positive impact on the call. Take a second, just because it's about them. It's still a good time for you. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. We started this call. I mentioned the Wall Street Journal. Find something from their profile you can throw out there. Hey, I saw you went to Cornell. I was at Ithaca. The weather there terrible. I can't believe how hot it is. I mean, find something that's going to give you a chance to relax into a conversation and give them a chance to relax into a conversation. And don't be afraid to talk about yourself a little bit, but give a snapshot. I had a great meal last night I wasn't expecting. Now that COVID's done, I had a chance to see some old friends. Think of it, it's a conversation. And again, people want to talk to people who are relaxed so they can talk to. Ease into the conversation. As you move past the small talk, get to your value proposition. I wanted to talk to you because I am an experienced middle school teacher. I'm very interested in doing, educational technology work. I see that you are working for this company. I really love to understand how you got that job and how your experience has been. You're not asking them for anything other than to talk about themselves. And who doesn't love talking about themselves? And you're taking notes and listening, and you're being an active listener. That sounds really cool. How do you get that role? What do you like about it? What skills are you finding are important to your success? Now, when you finish this conversation, now you're going to have an ask. The ask is going to be relatively simple. I'd really like to find out more about these kind of careers. Can you keep me in mind if something opens in your organization? And could you recommend some other people I might be able to speak to in the field? And then you're going to send a follow-up message. The follow-up message might be, hey, I really love talking to you. It's a great conversation. I learned A, B, and C. If things work out really well, their response is going to say, I also like talking to you. Hey, do me a favor, send me your resume because something might be coming up here. So I'm going to go backwards now to earlier in my presentation. You need to have that resume ready so you can send it when they ask for it. You aren't asking for a job, you're having a conversation with another adult. You need to track this stuff. It's easy to get overwhelmed about who you're talking to, but you need to pay attention. This is just a simple Google document, the last name of the person, what they're affiliated with, their contact information, when you spoke to them, how you met them, and then some notes. So as you kind of build out this data of all these people you're talking to, you can keep track of it. And I'm going to take a deep breath now. I've been talking for over half an hour, and I'll open it up for questions. And this is my contact information. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen if that's okay, Dana.
Thank you so much, Greg. We had one question that someone was told that you need to have a minimum of 500 connections or recruiters won't even consider you. Yeah. Is that something that you look at? You look at how many connections a person has?
LinkedIn has an algorithm. They score your profile. So yes, it's true. The more connections that you have, the better your profile gets scored. But as a recruiter, I don't see any of that. I just see who comes up in my inbox if I do a search using LinkedIn Recruiter tool. but you should strive to get contacts, or try to get quality contacts. And I reached out to people. People reached out to me and said, I want to connect with you on LinkedIn. And I feel comfortable saying to them, you know, I appreciate you reaching out. I like to I like to know the people I'm connecting with. Let me know if you have time for a brief conversation. Because I don't need to have 1,000 contacts. I mean,
I
I
think
have no
that's
idea who the
smart.
person is. And if they don't respond, I'm like, that's okay with me. But go for quality contacts.
Someone's asking if you have any advice on outreach for a listed job and without any direct connections to the potential hiring manager, or is that a faux pas?
I would do the same kind of LinkedIn search. You know, you find the company that the job's listed at, find somebody you can reach out to in that company, and gain an advocate. Because your resume is going to resonate a lot more if that person hand delivers it to HR or to the hiring manager. So I wouldn't reach out directly to the hiring manager first. I'd reach out around that hiring manager to find a way to get somebody to advocate to the hiring manager for you.
And if you can't find someone to try to get to before the hiring manager, would the hiring manager look at it badly if you did reach out to them directly, do you think?
I don't know if they look at it badly. It depends how you approach it. You know, you're taking a chance, you know, because more often than not, the hiring manager will say, well, just send your resume, follow the process. Other times, the hiring manager might be flattered and say, this is a great fit. And you know, again, there's no right or wrong, but I would try peripherally before I tried a direct shot. And guys, keep in mind too, don't get hung up on any one job or any one company. I mean, it's a big world. There are companies out there you never heard of. And something else we could talk about is just, you know, another time is researching the companies and finding targets that may not be obvious to you.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yes, I do have a question
Sure, please.
for Greg. Okay, I applied for a position at a pharmaceutical company. I have a friend who works there, and I listed her name as a referral on the application. Since then, I have also reached out to other people at the company on LinkedIn, and 2 people have responded. They've just, you know, accepted my invite, and that was it. But so now, what is my next interaction with them? How should I now approach them once they have responded? Should I tell them I have a friend who works there and I've applied for the position and I would like a meeting with you also to learn more about the position and the company?
I would take a more casual approach. I would say, I appreciate you connecting with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to get to know you better. Can we schedule a brief call?
Okay.
Because if you're direct about your job, it becomes a transaction. What you want is a conversation that gives you the opportunity to make an ask.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, Greg, can I make a comment on one of the things that Nancy Aronson pointed out?
Sure.
That not everybody on LinkedIn is active. So you may see somebody that you say, hey, this person works at XYZ company, looks like the greatest person to connect with, but they're not active, so they don't respond, and you get frustrated. Like the person that you had in your slide, Kate Goldstein, you can see that she's not a very active LinkedIn person. If she hasn't been active in 2 months, it could be 2 months before she accepts your message or connection request.
Yeah, that's why I agree. That's why I'm saying it's a game of numbers sometimes. Like I said, to get a 30% response, you're doing well. But don't take it personally. That's the key for me, Dean, is like, you know, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, Kate didn't get back to me. I wasn't asking them, you know, for my prom date and, you know, putting all my hope in one basket. I guess my parting statement is, don't get sucked into something thinking this is the only job in the world for me. And if I use my corny prom date again, there's plenty of fish in the sea. There's plenty of pebbles on the beach. And it makes you a better candidate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much,
for your
Greg.
time.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.